This bird proves that God exists. This is a woodpecker. And many of you must have seen it against a tree, striking the tree continuously, perhaps even for hours. The woodpecker strikes a tree trunk approximately 20 times per second. And with each strike, the woodpecker experiences 1,200 Gs of force. To put that into perspective, if a person is driving a car at 80 miles per hour and he crashes the car head on, that fatal car crash would expose a person to approximately 100 Gs of force. The woodpecker experiences 1,200 Gs, which is approximately 10 times more force than a fatal car crash with each strike. If the woodpecker didn't have this complex design, then after the first strike, the brain would have exploded. Because although it has a very strong beak, but there is no shock absorbing system, so the brain would have exploded. But we see hundreds and thousands of woodpeckers. Why? Because the design is so wonderful. This woodpecker has a shock absorbent system. In other words, it's a unique structure in which the tongue, it starts from the base of the beak and it curves right around the skull and ends between the eyes. So basically this tongue functions like a seat belt, and it locks the brain in place and it absorbs all the shock from the impact. This tongue also has another benefit, that because this tongue curves around the brain, if the woodpecker needs to catch a worm or an insect which is far in the tree, then the tongue extends and it catches the worms and the insects, and then it returns back in the mouth. Woodpeckers have another speciality, which is zygodactyl feet. In other words, 4 toes, 2 pointing forward and 2 pointing backwards. Yes, there are some of them which have only 3 toes. But these toes are designed in such a way that it's coupled with sharp curved claws, and this allows them to grip and scale the vertical tree effortlessly. One more wonderful thing about this woodpecker is that it has something known as a tripod stance. The woodpecker doesn't just rely on its two feet, no. What the woodpecker does is that it presses its stiff pointed tail feathers against the tree to create a 3-point base, providing stability whilst they drill. A woodpecker's extraordinary masterpiece, it reflects on an astonishing understanding of physics, anatomy, biology, biomechanics and engineering, far beyond anything a human being could ever produce. If something so simple like this mic requires a designer, then how could a living creature like this woodpecker, so intricate, exist without a creator, without a designer? That is why I said this bird proves that God exists.